Hello everyone, this is Nick from Prebio and I am here with another tutorial. This tutorial is going to be heading into some of Blender's physics. We're going to the physics side of Blender today. And just doing a quick little scene. You can see that this is the final result. So we're heading into the explosion modifier and the fluid simulator in Blender. So this is just a little introduction to those. Let's go ahead and take a peek into the final result that we'll be achieving. So this is the scene right here that you can see. It's pretty simple. Just a little scene here with a cup with fluid going into it. But the cup will be exploding, so you can scroll through some of the animation and show you an easy way of exploding the cup, and also an easy way of setting up fluid in Blender. So let's go ahead and get started with some physics in Blender. Alright, so we got the default scene loaded up. Let's go ahead and start creating the scene. So I'm just going to use the default cube to create the little area that the cup sits in and that the water will fill up in. So I'm just going to place it above the grid floor. That way it's easier for the rest of the scene. And I'm just going to scale that up to 8. And then I'm just going to scale this down to about there. I'm going to go into edit mode and I'm going to delete that top face. So now we have a little area where everything can take place. Alright, so I'm just going to add in a little bit of thickness to the box. So that way there's a little bit of an edge. That's good. And I'm just going to scale this up just a little bit more, holding down control. And yeah, that should be enough room for everything to work in. Maybe a little bit shorter. That's good. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and delete the lamp. We don't need that. And we can set up the camera later. Let's go ahead and add in the cup real quick. So this is a circle object. And we need to adjust some of the settings here. Set the vertice amount to 16 because we'll be adding in a subdivision subsurface. And if we add too many vertices right there, we'll just have too many vertices and it'll be too much. Alright, so let's just go ahead and extrude. So let's go into edit mode, go into vertice select mode, and we'll just hit extrude along the Z to about right there, and then we'll go ahead and scale that out just like that. Alright. Okay, so also hit F at the bottom. Forgot to fill it in the options panel, but that's okay. Go ahead and hit smooth shading, and then go ahead and add in your subdivision subsurf. I'm just going to hit Control 2. That'll add in a subdivision subsurface, a level 2. And I'm just going to go into edit mode here and just bring down those vertices so it wasn't so smoothed off. And I'm also going to add in some ribbings in it, the little part in the cup that lets you grab it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to add about 3 of those. So just place vertices like this. You can make your cup however you want, but I just found that this works a little bit better. So just go and scale those out like that. And then to make them a little bit sharper, we're going to go to the mean increase and increase that to about 0.5, and that should be good. Yeah, we can scale those in just a little bit more, and that'll be good. Alright, so we got our basic cup here. Alright, let's go ahead and add in the solidifier modifier. So we obviously have a thicker cup. Not too thick, but thick enough. And you're also going to want to add in another vertice right at the top right there, just so that's not smoothed off like it was before. Alright, so just go ahead and clean up your cup. Just going to bring that down there just a little bit more, and that should be good. Alright, so let's just place the cup right on the floor right there. And that should be good. Alright, so we got the cup and the box where everything is going to be working. Let's go ahead and set up the background right now. So I'm going to be using the add-on, the images as planes. So you can use that, or you can just add in a plane. I just found that this is easier because this automatically adds in a plane. And I'm just going to be using an image that I found off the internet. Just a nice cool background. You can use whatever one you want. I just wanted a cool background. So I'm just going to rotate that along the X by 90 degrees. And I'm just going to place it right up in there. So we have a nice background. And I forgot to hit emission in these settings. So we can go ahead and click that. It's just a nice colorful background that will work good. Alright, so in the world settings, just go ahead and set that to be completely black. And yeah, let's go ahead and set up our camera. So I'm going to go into the front view and hit Control Alt number pad 0. And that'll be good. So just going to get a shot here right of the cup. I think this is still a little too high. Yeah, that's better. Then just place the background image that it suits it the best. Just gonna place the camera right where I wanted it to be. Okay, so just right at that edge there, like that. Okay, and then you can just rotate along the X, position it up, make the cup look a little more mightier, and yeah, that should be good. So if we just want to look at the scene right now, this is pretty much what we have. So yeah, it's looking good. A little tip here for you: if you want to just render what the camera can see and save viewport lagging and rendering times, just hit border and that will render just what the camera can see. Alright, let's go ahead and get these shaders done. These are pretty easy. This is just a normal glossy shader. So if you hit L, it'll go right to glossy. And I'm just going to make it a little bit more rougher. So it adds in a little bit of blurriness to the rest of the scene. Alright, and obviously for the cup, it's just going to be a glass shader. So if you hit G, if you can't find them, it's taking you too long, you can just memorize the first letter. So I just know G is for glass. Alright, by default it's set to 0.8. Go ahead and make that completely white so we can see. And also for the lighting, I'm going to select the background and I'm going to duplicate it. And then I'm going to go to the front view and just rotate that. Oops, I think I duplicated it again. Yes, I did. Okay. So we're just going to bring it down so we have a front light for the scene as well. Okay, and this will help with some of the reflections, so you can get some cool shots like that. So just wherever you want to add it in is good. Okay, so we got the default scene. Let's go ahead and work on the explosion of the cup. So this is a very easy step and a very cool effect that enables everything on its own. So with the cup selected, since this will be our exploding object, a little tip here for you is if you go to Object, Quick Effects, you can do Quick Explode. And that's very cool because Blender automatically calculates an explosion. And yeah, there you go. It's already exploding. But obviously we have some problems with it. It's only 100 pieces that are exploding with the cup. So obviously we want more pieces. So we're gonna go ahead and make that about 2,000. That'll give us a little bit more. And that'll be good. One thing to note is that it automatically calculates with the number of vertices. So you can see down here, the pieces are a little bit smaller, but these pieces are a little bit bigger. And that's because there's no vertices in here for Blender to calculate. So what we want to do is just add in some more vertices. About 10, that should be good. And now you can see that the pieces are a little bit smaller. So there you go. Okay, so we want them to randomly go everywhere. That random amount is already set to 1. You want to increase the normal amount, and this will force the particles out more. So I suggest doing at least a minimum of 5. And you can see that it kind of does some weird effects, but it shoots the particles out more. Also, for more twisting and turning, you want to increase the Brownian amount. I set mine to at least 0.7, and that will make the particles twist and bend more. So yes, you definitely want that. I'm going to double the amount of particles there, just because I think there's still, yeah, there's still probably not enough. Okay. And if you want even more particles, you can choose children particles. Now I set mine to about 2 because this does add in a lot more particles to work with. So you can set that to whatever you want. I'm going to set the random amount for the children particles to 0.1. That'll also make them more randomly turn and whatnot. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Now we want this cube box to be reacting with them. So hit the collision button in the physics panel and set the factor amount for both the particle dampening and the particle friction to 1, and that will collect the particles and make them stay on the plane. Okay, sweet. So that's pretty much it for the explosion modifier of the cup. You can look at it through your camera. I think it's still not enough force. So let's add in some more, let's maybe add in some more particles. Yeah, it's kind of just throwing it out there like that. Okay, so that is the cup done and dusted. Let's go ahead and get into the fluid next. Alright, so before we get into the fluid simulator, I'm just going to change some more of these settings. I'm going to set the random amount to 3 so it rotates and kind of spins off more. I'm going to turn the normal amount down to 4. I'm also going to want a little bit of randomized size with the particles, so we get some big and some small. And I'm also going to increase the Brownian amount to 1. So that should give us a little bit more of a better animation. And yeah, that was a little cooler for me. So yeah, that's a little bit better of an exploding cup. And it still looks good when you render it. So there you go. Okay, so now to the fluid. Alright. So, obviously, with a fluid simulator, you need a domain. So we're going to add in a cube again. I'm going to place it above the grid floor again. And I'm going to scale it up to 8. But I'm going to scale down the height just a little bit to around in there. and then I'm going to scale it out along the X to right past the end of the edge of that. So we want the entire area of this domain cube to take up the entire area of our box where all the physics is happening, because we want water to be able to go everywhere. Now for mine, I didn't do this, but I found that I actually needed to. I saw that the fluid was coming right up to the camera and stopping right there. Obviously, because I didn't take it beyond the camera. So you want to make sure that your bounding box goes just beyond the camera, so the fluid can actually come right up to the camera like it would in the real world. Alright, so now we just have this big old cube, and it's ready for the fluid simulator. Alright, so let's go to the physics panel, hit fluid, and the type is going to be domain. Alright, so if this is your first time in the fluid simulator, it's not as hard as everything looks. For the resolution, I normally keep mine under a gig. So that looks like it's at a final of 297. So that's actually very high resolution fluid. Most people that I see normally keep that around 250. So that's a little bit higher of a resolution. And I always set my preview up to the max of 100, so it looks its best. You can change that to be the final when the fluid is baked out later. Speaking of baking, we need to set up a folder for the caching fluid. I have a folder right here that I bake everything into. I need to go and delete these because this can take up some room on your computer. So I'm just going to make it bake 14. Alright, and all you have to do is just make a new folder and accept. Now it's gonna make a lot of files of that, so you want it to have its own folder on your computer. Alright, I always set the preset to be water. I don't think it changes anything, but I just always set that to be water. And yeah, so this is where we get some of the fine particles. We're going to set the smoothing of the actual fluid up to 3 and the subdivision amount to 2. That's going to allow you to give more particles. The subdivision needs to be at least 2 though to have tiny particles. So I'm going to set the generate particles to 0.2 and the tracer to 1. That'll give us, again, very fine, detailed, tiny particles. If you go any higher than, honestly, 0.1 is going to give you a lot, but I wanted a little bit more. If you go any higher than 0.2, you're going to get a very chaotic fluid simulation. So I set mine to 0.2, but you're welcome to go higher or lower. Alright, I also want air bubbles wherever they may occur. And that is good for the domain. Alright, now we need the inflow object. So this is where the water is coming out. So I just set it to be a UV sphere. And just hit smooth shading if you want. I'm gonna add it right above the cup. And I'm going to scale it down to about a 0.6 on the size. That should be good. Look at it through the camera. Yeah, that should be good. That's a good size. So for the fluid for that, we're going to go to inflow, and we're going to set the Z to -2. That's going to force the fluid down. If you don't change anything in here, then the fluid is just going to, I think it just stays there. I don't, because it needs somewhere to go with the X, Y, or Z. So, okay, so that is the inflow object done and dusted. So that is ready to now bake out. But to make the fluid interact with the particles of the cup, we're going to make the cup a collision object, and we're also going to set both those factor amounts to 1. and the fluid is already going to interact with this floor since we set it to be a collision. So it's going to bounce off that floor and it's going to actually fill up. That's why we have that little edge railing on the side there, so the fluid can fill up in there. So that is pretty much it. Let's go ahead and make sure that everything is okay with our fluid, because it's probably going to take a while for you to bake with the amount of resolution in here. I'm going to just go ahead and set mine for this tutorial to a normal 250, so that cuts it about in half. But for you, for your final scene, I recommend going a lot higher, and for my final scene, I went a lot higher. So everything is good to go. Go ahead and select your domain and hit the golden bake button. So this is going to take a little bit. Yeah. I always get Blender. Looks like it's about ready to crash, but it doesn't. So I'll come back once I have enough in the scene to work with, and we can make a final image. Alright, so I've just baked out the first 30 frames of the fluid simulator. Now you can see from here it doesn't look that grand, and you might think that there's a problem, but it's not. The viewport display is just displaying the preview. If you want to see the final fluid in its full glory, change the viewport display mode to final. And there you go. There is your final fluid and how it looks. So like I said, with the particle amount, you can get some very fine detailed particles. Now the fluid looks a little weird. We want to hit smooth shading, and that will make it look a little bit better. Now I recommend adding in a subdivision subsurface. If I add in one just at level 1, it's very high poly already, but I recommend adding in at least a fluid simulator, or excuse me, a subdivision subsurface at level 1 if you're rendering out just an image. Now if you want to make this an actual animation, I recommend not having a subdivision subsurface. But yeah, that's pretty much it for all of the physics. Now obviously we want to add in the material for the fluid, because if you went rendered view, you would just see this big blotchy, probably looks like milk, so we don't want that. We're going to add in a new material, and the correct shader for water is the gloss shader. The index of refraction for water is 1.333. So go ahead and set that. That's the way light bends through the water with the shadows and stuff. And we're going to go ahead and set the color to be 100% white. Alright, now the scene looks a little dark for my liking. You might like the lighting, but I just want to brighten up the scene. So I'm going to hit that 2 button, so this is its own object, and I'm going to increase that to about 3 or 5, just so we get some more front-on brighter lighting. So maybe 5. Yeah, that's good. Alright. So that is pretty much it for the tutorial. Just get a nice shot here so we can head into a little bit of compositing. If you guys want, I'll show you some compositing stuff. So for the rendering, just choosing a rendering preset here. I went online and I found some of the dimensions for like 4K and digital cinema that they use in movies. So thought that would be cool to use in this tutorial. Sampling amount, I used 400 for mine, just because we have glossy shaders and glass shaders, and it can get kind of noisy after a while. But if you want to decrease the noise, just hit the no caustics button. And like it says, it results in a little bit of a darker image, but does not have the noise or the fireflies. So that is pretty much it. Just checking everything here. Alright, let's go ahead and render it out to an image, and then we'll hop into the compositor and composite it. So let's just wait for this to render out. Alright, so it took about, well, it took exactly 4 minutes and 47 seconds to render with my NVIDIA GTX 670. Might have taken you longer. You probably found that it was a very high poly scene, but the result is really nice. Let's go ahead into the compositor. So, I'm just going to go use nodes and backdrop. And to quickly add in the scene, you can hit Control Shift and then left click, and that will automatically add in a viewer node, and hit V to zoom out your scene, your background, sorry. And just going to cut the compositor thing and just getting set up here. Alright, so the first node that we can add in is the color balance node, and this will just change some of the colors of the scene. So I went into a little bit more orange here to get this part of the scene popping more, and then I did the opposite of the color wheel and went into a little bit of the blue. I'll just make those colors pop a little bit more, and just you can change it however you want. I just chose the color grading to be around in here on the orange side. Alright, to also make the colors pop a little bit more, I'm just going to add in a hue and saturation value. Pretty low, but it darkens it, but also makes the colors a little bit more vibrant. But to brighten it back up, I'm just going to add in RGB curve node and just slightly brighten it up. And you can see a little bit more of how the fluid is reacting with some of the stuff. And that's what we really want to see, is the fluid right there. Alright, you can just check through these. I'm going to add in a lens distortion node and set the dispersion amount to be about 0.005, very low amount. I never really go that high with the dispersion node because I found that it doesn't look that good if you go too high. I'm just going to add in a vignette. This is, I know it's probably an old way of adding in the vignette, but I'm just going to add in a lens distortion node, set the distort value all the way up to 1, converter math node, and plug that into the top, set the type to greater than, and set the value to 0. Alright, I'm going to add in a blur node now, filter, blur, set the type to fast Gaussian, relative X, and I'm going to choose about 30 by 30. And that'll make the, if you go Y, it tends to go into the image a little bit more, but if you go X, it tends to stay towards the side of your scene. So I always use X. So next, add in a mix node and set the type to multiply. Add in the vignette effect into the bottom and your original scene into the top, so that lens distortion, the last node of that, and there you go, there's the vignette. I always decrease it. I want the vignette effect to just be very slight, but still visible. Alright, I'm just going to brighten the scene up just a little bit more, and that is pretty much it. That is what I did to add in some Blender physics. So that is the end of the tutorial. Hope you guys liked it. Just a little short introduction into some of Blender's physics with the fluid simulator and the explosion modifier. So that is it for this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.